Hello everyone, this is David Smith from Game Careers. I'm still at GDC in San Francisco. Very pleased to have with me Don Daglow, the President and Creative Director of Daglow Entertainment and long-standing industry veteran. Don, please can you introduce yourself?
I'm Don Daglow. I'm President and Creative Director of Daglow Entertainment.
And Don, what are you working on at the moment?
Right now what I'm working on is actually I have two paths I'm walking at the same time. One is I'm working on my own original mobile game. And secondly, I'm advising a handful of typically small independent companies working on their projects, typically either on design issues or on production or team issues. And I also have a couple of larger clients.
And tell us more about your history in the game sector. You've done many things over the last 40 years.
Well, I was one of those very lucky people where I was in college. I fell into game design just by accident because our school was one of the first to give access to the computer to students. So I wrote games as a hobby throughout the 1970s, as a student and then later as a graduate student. And when the industry began, I was one of those lucky people who was able to get in at the very start. And I was one of the original 5 programmers for Intellivision back in the first console wars.
And tell us about some of the companies that you've worked for or built over the years.
Well, I started out, my first job was with Mattel, a toy company which had the Intellivision. I then went to a little startup called Electronic Arts, which at the time I was one of 3 producers. I later ran Broderbund's Entertainment and Education Division. And then I started Stormfront Studios in 1988, which I ran for 20 years, which was a AAA console studio. And for the last 5 years, I've been working independently as a designer and advisor.
And tell us more about some of the games you've worked on. What are you most proud of?
You know, it's funny because when you've shipped over 100 games, it's hard to think of because you love all your children. But I think the 2 cases I come back to would be, in some ways, the games that we wrote before there was an industry. There's a pride because there was nothing there but love, and there was nothing there but that connection you had with our very small audience. I also think that the Intellivision times and the early EA times, those games are very special because we had a sense of, that was a time when we had the first passionate game audiences, video games and computer games, which is becoming popular. And you had that sense of a connection. You were doing something new, the audience was discovering something new, and that created a relationship. And then I think another great example would be Neverwinter Nights on AOL, which was the first graphical MMORPG. And that feeling of adventures were all text adventures, MMOs were all text. And so we wanted to be the first in an MMO setting to be able to get graphics into it. And we knew others had tried and failed, and we knew others were trying. And we wanted to be the first and make the right trade-offs, make the right choices so we could be the ones to break through. That's a very fond memory.
Fantastic. And finally, Don, what advice would you give a job seeker thinking about working in the games industry?
I think if somebody's coming into the industry now, maybe they're a fresh graduate or they're redesigning their own career to come into the industry, I think there's really 2 things to look at. Number one is whatever your craft is, develop it, perfect it, continue growing. I know as a game designer, I've now done this for over 40 years, and I'm learning a lot every year. So the opportunity to continually grow is always going to be there. And I think the second thing would simply be persistence. If this is what you love to do, it may be a situation where the jobs you're looking for might come easily, or it may take a while to find that job. But being persistent, not getting discouraged, and keeping on trying even as you hone your craft. Because I know of many stories of people in the industry who faced a lot of rejection and dejection and discouragement for quite a while when they first came into the industry. Or maybe they kind of came in through an accidental path. I know some fabulous designers who started out as testers and then worked their way through test into higher areas of QA and then from there across into production design. But whatever path people take, there are tons of people walking around in the hallways of GDC who had all those same discouragements, all those same negatives, all those same don't try, give up sorts of messages. They didn't give up, they kept trying, and it's worked out great for them, and I think the same can be true for others.
Fantastic advice. Don Daglow, President and Creative Director of Daglow Entertainment, thank you very much.
Thanks.